Listen up, folks, because this is the moment when the gloves came off in the most spectacular way imaginable. A true turning point in the endless saga of political drama that has gripped the nation for years, where Navarro, that fiery commentator who's never once shied away from calling it like she sees it with unapologetic fervor and razor-sharp wit, just dropped a massive bombshell on live TV right in the middle of a heated panel discussion that was already simmering with tension from the outset, her voice cutting through the air like a knife through butter as she's staring down the camera with eyes blazing like twin flames of righteous indignation, and she declares, without a hint of hesitation or fear, "You, sir, are not just a leader. You're a walking disaster, a bully in a suit who treats the Oval Office like his personal playground, a place where rules don't apply, and egos run rampant, your obsession with vendettas that stretch back decades, your thin skin that cracks at the slightest criticism like fragile glass under pressure. It's not presidential in the least. It's pathetic and unbecoming of anyone who claims to hold the highest office in the land. And let's talk about those shady deals you've buried deep in the annals of your history. The ones that keep resurfacing like bad pennies from a forgotten pocket, refusing to stay hidden. No matter how many layers of denial you pile on top, you're not fooling anyone anymore. Not the public, not the press, not even your own dwindling circle of enablers who whisper sweet nothings in your ear to keep the illusion alive. Boom! Just like that, the studio goes silent for a split second. That feels like an eternity. The kind of hush that falls over a room when something irreversible has been said. Then it erupts into a cacophony of reactions. Co-hosts are scrambling to regain control of the narrative, their faces. A mix of shock and reluctant admiration. Producers are probably sweating bullets behind the scenes, frantically signaling to cut to commercial or pivot the topic. But Navarro, oh, she's calm as a cucumber amidst the storm she just unleashed, like she's been waiting years, perhaps, her entire career, to unload this torrent of truth in such a public and unfiltered manner. Her composure, a stark contrast to the chaos she's ignited. And Trump, the man at the center of this verbal maelstrom, oh, he loses it completely in a way that's almost predictable, yet still shocking to witness. Within minutes of the broadcast hitting the airwaves, his fingers are flying across his phone screen like a man possessed firing off a barrage of posts on his preferred social media platform that read like a toddler's tantrum, amplified to global proportions. Fake news witch hunt. Anna who total loser. He's ranting about how she's just jealous of his so-called successes, how she's part of some deep state conspiracy cooked up in the shadows to undermine him at every turn. But here's the thing that makes this all so profoundly telling. This isn't just another tweet storm in a long line of digital outbursts that we've grown numb to over the years. This is Trump unraveling in real time before our very eyes, exposing his raw nerves for the world to see and dissect, laying bare the insecurities that lurk beneath the bluster and bravado he's cultivated so carefully. Remember, this guy's supposed to be the commander-in-chief, the steady hand on the wheel guiding the ship of state through turbulent waters, the one who projects strength and resolve in the face of adversity. But instead, he's acting like a reality TV reject who can't handle the heat of the kitchen. He himself built his reactions more akin to a contestant voted off the island than a world leader commanding respect on the global stage. Navarro didn't just poke the bear with a stick. She lit a fire under it with gasoline and a match. And now the whole forest is watching it burn uncontrollably, the flames licking higher and higher as the spectacle unfolds. Cut to the aftermath in the green room where the energy is electric and the air thick with the residue of the confrontation sources close to the production. Say Navarro's phone is blowing up, with support from colleagues across the media landscape. Texts and calls pouring in from fellow commentators who have long shared her frustrations but perhaps lacked the platform or the courage to voice them so boldly. While Trump's inner circle is thrust into full-blown damage control mode, huddling in strategy sessions to craft a response that minimizes the fallout. But the damage is already done. The genie is out of the bottle, and there's no putting it back without looking even more desperate. But why did this particular bombshell hit so hard? Why did it resonate with such force that it shook the foundations of political discourse? Because Navarro didn't stop at mere personal jabs that could be dismissed as petty squabbles. She dove headfirst into the heart of his fixation on power grabs that border on authoritarianism, how he twists facts to fit his narrative like a contortionist bending reality to suit his whims, and how his ego eclipses any real policymaking that could benefit the average citizen. This man, she continued on air with unwavering intensity, her words flowing like a river in flood, has turned the White House into a fortress of lies where loyalty is demanded but never earned through genuine leadership or integrity. He's alienated allies who once stood by America's side, emboldened enemies who see his volatility as a weakness to exploit, and left the American people holding the bag for his failures, paying the price in divided communities and eroded trust. The audience in the studio gasps audibly, a collective intake of breath that echoes the sentiment of viewers at home glued to their screens. The ratings skyrocket in real time as word spreads like wildfire across social networks, people tuning in mid-segment to catch the tail end of the explosion. This isn't scripted drama penned by Hollywood writers for entertainment value. It's raw, unfiltered truth-telling that shakes the foundations of what we expect from our public figures, a moment of authenticity in an era drowning in spin and sound bites. Trump's response escalates the drama to new heights. More chaos ensues as he calls into friendly networks that serve as his echo chambers, his voice booming over the airwaves with that familiar mix of defiance and defensiveness. She's a has-been, folks. Nobody cares what she says. It's all lies from the failing media. But we all know that's code for I'm rattled to my core. His face turns that signature shade of red we've seen in countless memes and montages, veins popping on his forehead as he rants about betrayal from within and without. Insiders whisper tales of him pacing the halls of his residence like a caged animal demanding heads roll among his staff for not foreseeing or preventing this public relations nightmare. His fury palpable even through the screen. This bombshell isn't just words thrown into the ether. It's a mirror held up to his deepest insecurities, reflecting back the image of a man who craves adulation but wilts under scrutiny. And he can't stand the reflection. Staring back at him, it forces him to confront the fragility of his constructed persona. Navarro, with her immigrant roots that ground her in the American dream she fought to achieve, and her no-nonsense attitude honed from years in the political trenches, represents everything he fears. Most strong women who speak truth to power without flinching, women who refuse to be intimidated by bluster or threats, and in that electrifying moment on live TV, she became the voice of millions who've had enough of the circus, millions who yearn for leaders with substance over spectacle. But let's zoom out for a broader perspective to understand the full weight of this event. This confrontation didn't happen in a vacuum isolated from the world. It's the culmination of years of buildup, a pressure cooker of tensions simmering just below the surface, Navarro's consistent critiques over the seasons, Trump's escalating attacks on critics that range from petty nicknames to legal threats. She calls him out on his divisive rhetoric that sows seeds of discord, how he pits Americans against each other for political gain, turning neighbors into adversaries over issues that could be solved with compromise. You're not uniting us as a nation should be united, she thunders with passion that fills the room. You're tearing us apart one hateful speech at a time, dividing us along lines of race, class, and ideology for your own benefit. Honor. The panel tries to interject with questions or counterpoints to balance the discussion, but she's on a roll unstoppable in her momentum, listing grievances like a prosecutor laying out evidence in a high-stakes court case, each point building on the last to paint a damning portrait. Trump's camp fires back almost immediately with accusations of bias and partisanship, claiming the network is complicit in an agenda against him. But it's too late. The damage is done, irreparable. In the court of public opinion, social media explodes in a frenzy of activity. Hashtags trending worldwide like digital billboards flashing her name and quotes. People are sharing clips at a viral pace, debating the merits in comment sections that stretch on endlessly, mobilizing supporters to rally behind her message of accountability. This is democracy in action, messy and loud and imperfect, but vital in its expression. A reminder that free speech isn't just a right, but a responsibility to challenge power when it strays. As the segment wraps up with the host trying to regain composure, Navarro leans in one final time, her voice steady and resolute. America deserves better than a leader who lashes out like a cornered animal every time he's called out. We deserve someone who rises to the occasion, not sinks to the lowest common denominator. Trump's fury spills over into subsequent interviews where he doubles down on his attacks, calling her unhinged and vowing retribution in vague but ominous terms that send chills down spines. But here's the irony that underscores the entire episode. His overreaction only proves her point with crystal clarity. He's not composed under fire. He's combustible, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. This chapter of the ongoing saga shows how one bold statement delivered with conviction can ignite a firestorm that consumes the airwaves and captivates the nation, forcing us all to question who's really fit to lead in these trying times. If this raw exchange has you fired up and ready for more, hit share. Because moments like these remind us why free speech matters more than ever. They spark conversations that can lead to real change. Stick around. The ripples from this bombshell are just beginning to spread across the political pond, creating waves that could reshape the landscape. Diving deeper into the nuances, Navarro's words cut to the very core of Trump's persona, peeling back the layers to expose his pattern of deflection that has become his hallmark. How every criticism, no matter how valid or constructive, is met with counterattacks, rather than any semblance of accountability or self-reflection. "You've built an empire on bluster and hot air," she says with a pointed finger that seems to pierce through the screen. But empires crumble when the foundation is sand-shifting and unstable under the weight of truth. Trump's loss of cool is epic in its proportions. Reports trickle in of him slamming doors in frustration, berating aides who dare to suggest a measured response, his outbursts echoing through the corridors of power like thunderclaps. It's not just embarrassing for him personally, it's revealing of a deeper flaw in character that affects governance. This isn't leadership in the traditional sense. It's a spectacle that distracts from the real work of running a country. And, as the dust settles from this live TV showdown, one thing becomes abundantly clear. Navarro struck a nerve that runs deep, and Trump's reaction is the real story that will be analyzed for weeks, months, even years to come. More to come as we unpack the fallout in greater detail. But for now, wrapping this chapter. Remember, in a world dominated by sound bites and superficial exchanges, Navarro delivered a symphony of truth that resonated far and wide. Trump's meltdown priceless in its authenticity. But this is just the start of a larger narrative. The bombshell echoes far beyond the studio walls, shaking corridors of power and inspiring those who watch from afar. If you're nodding along in agreement or even disagreement, subscribe for more unfiltered takes on the events that shape our world, because when voices like Navarro rise above the noise, tyrants tremble, and the status quo is challenged. This is the power of live television, the power of one person standing up to say what needs to be said, no matter the cost or the backlash that follows. It's moments like these that define eras and push society forward, even if the path is rocky and filled with obstacles placed by those who fear change the most. To expand on the context, let's consider the build-up that led to this explosive moment. Navarro has been a thorn in Trump's side for years, Her commentary on various platforms, dissecting his policies and personality with surgical precision, from his handling of immigration issues that hit close to home for her, as someone with roots in Latin America, to his economic decisions that she argues favor the elite over the working class. She's never pulled punches, and this live TV appearance was no exception, perhaps even the pinnacle of her critiques. The panel was discussing current events, the kind of topics that dominate headlines: foreign policy blunders, domestic divisions, scandals that refuse to die. And Navarro seized the opportunity to connect the dots, showing how Trump's behavior ties into larger patterns of dysfunction. Her bombshell wasn't impromptu. It was the result of accumulated frustration carefully articulated to maximize impact. And it did. The way she wove personal anecdotes with factual takedowns made it relatable and undeniable. Viewers at home felt seen, felt heard through her words. Trump's immediate retaliation via social media was swift and unhinged, posts laced with typos and all-caps rage that only amplified the perception of him as unstable. His followers rallied, of course, defending their leader with fervor. But even among them cracks appeared, some questioning if this was the hill to die on. This exchange highlighted the polarization in media, how networks become battlegrounds for ideological wars. But Navarro's poise elevated the discourse, turning what could have been a shouting match into a teachable moment about civility and courage. As the story spread, celebrities weighed in, politicians issued statements, and everyday people shared their own stories of standing up to bullies, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond politics into personal empowerment. This bombshell served as a catalyst for conversations about mental health in leadership, about the toll of constant conflict on a nation's psyche. Trump's loss of it wasn't just a personal failing. It was a symptom of a system that rewards bombast over substance, and Navarro's call-out forced a mirror to be held up, not just to him, but to all of us who enable such figures through votes or apathy. In the hours following, the internet was alight with memes mocking Trump's reaction videos, edited with dramatic music underscoring the drama, but beneath the humor was a serious undercurrent. Is this the leadership we want? The example we set for future generations? Navarro's words lingered, quoted in articles discussed on podcasts, becoming part of the cultural lexicon. Her bravery inspired others to speak out, from journalists to activists, creating a chain reaction of truth-telling that challenged the status quo. Trump's attempts to dismiss her as irrelevant only fueled the fire, proving that when you try to silence a voice, it often grows louder in defiance. This chapter in the annals of political history will be remembered not for the tantrum, but for the stand taken against it. A reminder that one person's courage can shift the narrative, even if just a little, toward a more accountable future. To delve even further, consider the psychological aspects at play. Experts in behavior analysis pointed out how Trump's response exhibited classic signs of narcissistic injury, where criticism pierces the fragile ego and elicits disproportionate rage. Navarro, with her background in political strategy, knew exactly where to strike, targeting not just actions, but the motivations behind them. Her accusation of shady deals referenced past controversies that have dogged him, from business ventures gone awry to political maneuvers shrouded in secrecy. Each word she spoke was like a thread pulled from a tapestry, unraveling the image he's so carefully woven. The studio audience's reaction was mixed, some applauding her boldness, others shifting uncomfortably, reflecting the divided nation watching. But the overall effect was unifying. For those tired of the chaos, social media metrics showed a surge in engagements, with shares and likes pouring in from across the spectrum. Even some conservative voices acknowledging the validity of her points, though reluctantly. Trump's camp's damage control involved rallying the base with rallies and emails blasting the biased media. But it rang hollow. The bombshell had landed, and the crater it left was deep, forcing introspection on what we value in leaders: strength or stability, charisma or character. As the day wore on, Navarro appeared on other shows to elaborate, not backing down an inch, her message consistent and clear, while Trump retreated to his bubble surrounded by sycophants, assuring him it was all a nothing burger. But deep down the sting lingered. This event wasn't isolated. It was part of a pattern where critics rise and are met with fury. But each time the armor weakens a bit more, the public grows wearier of the cycle. Navarro's immigrant story added layers, showing how those who've fought for their place in America are often the fiercest defenders of its ideals. Her love for the country shining through even in criticism, contrasting with Trump's often self-serving patriotism. This confrontation symbolized a clash of worlds, one rooted in resilience, the other in entitlement. And in that clash, truth had a fighting chance. Wrapping up the narrative of this pivotal moment, the legacy of Navarro's bombshell on live TV is one of empowerment, a beacon for those who feel voiceless in the face of power. Trump's loss of composure served as a cautionary tale, highlighting the dangers of unchecked ego in high places. As we reflect on this, it's clear that such moments are rare, but transformative, sparking debates that can lead to real change if we let them. So if this tale of courage and chaos has stirred something in you, remember to engage, to speak up, because, in the end, democracy thrives on voices like hers, bold and unyielding. Now that the initial shockwave from Navarro's live TV bombshell is hit with the force of a political earthquake shaking the foundations of discourse and leaving aftershocks that reverberate through every corner of the nation's fabric. Let's explore in exhaustive detail how it's rippling through the political landscape in ways that are both immediate and far-reaching, transforming what could have been a fleeting moment into a catalyst for broader upheaval that touches on legislation alliances and the very mechanisms of governance we've come to rely on. This isn't just a personal spat between a commentator and a leader that fizzles out after a news cycle or two. It's a spark that ignites debates in Congress where bills on ethics and transparency suddenly gain unexpected traction. Amid the chaos, senators and representatives from both sides of the aisle are weighing in with statements that range from measured support to outright condemnation. Allies of Trump scrambling to defend him by dismissing Navarro's words as partisan noise, while opponents seize the moment to amplify calls for reform that have languished in committees for years. If a leader can't handle criticism without devolving into rage, one prominent senator quips in a floor speech that goes viral almost instantly. How can he handle crises that demand cool heads and steady hands like economic downturns or international conflicts? The bombshell exposes cracks in the system that were always there but hidden beneath layers of complacency, forcing a reckoning on what we as a society tolerate from those in power, from the erosion of norms to the weaponization of rhetoric that divides rather than unites. It's a wake-up call that prompts subcommittee hearings on media influence and executive accountability, with witnesses called to testify on the patterns of behavior Navarro highlighted so vividly. Society feels the impact, too, in profound and multifaceted ways that extend beyond the Beltway into the everyday lives of citizens across the country. Grassroots movements are mobilizing with renewed vigor, organizations that focus on civil rights and voter engagement, seeing a surge in donations and volunteer sign-ups as people from all walks of life, teachers in classrooms shaping young minds, workers on factory floors, grinding through shifts, activists pounding pavements in urban centers, are sharing stories online and in community gatherings about how Trump's style of leadership has affected their lives directly, from heightened anxieties over policy shifts to feelings of alienation in a polarized environment. Navarro's immigrant background resonates deeply with marginalized groups, inspiring rallies in major cities where chants echo her message of defiance. No more bullies in office, no more excuses for toxicity. These gatherings aren't just protests. They're forums for dialogue where speakers from diverse backgrounds connect the dots between personal experiences and national issues. Social media algorithms, those invisible curators of our digital worlds, are buzzing with activity, pushing the clip of her bombshell to millions of feeds through shares, retweets, and algorithmic boosts that prioritize engagement influencers with massive followings dissected in videos and threads. Psychologists appear on podcasts to analyze Trump's reaction as classic narcissism under duress, complete with breakdowns of body language and verbal cues that reveal underlying insecurities. This bombshell isn't fading into the background noise of endless content. It's fueling a cultural shift toward greater accountability, where public figures are held to higher standards. Communities long silenced by fear or apathy find their voice amplified, turning personal outrage into collective action that manifests in petitions, town halls, and even artistic expressions like street art depicting Navarro as a modern-day hero standing against a Goliath of ego. Economically, the fallout is tangible and measurable, rippling through markets and industries in ways that underscore the interconnectedness of politics and finance. Stock markets dip in the immediate aftermath. As investors, those cautious stewards of capital worry about instability stemming from a leader's erratic responses that signal unpredictability in policymaking. Businesses tied to Trump's policies or endorsements face sudden boycotts, organized through social media campaigns that gain traction overnight. Consumers voting with their wallets to express disapproval, while others pivot strategically to distance themselves from the controversy, perhaps issuing statements of neutrality or even subtle support for Navarro's stance to appeal to a broader customer base. Her critique of his shady deals prompts a wave of investigations by watchdog groups and journalistic outlets, with whistleblowers emerging from the shadows to provide documents and testimonies that add fuel to the fire. Media outlets ramp up coverage with dedicated specials and investigative series that delve into the allegations. Ratings soar as audiences tune in for the drama, but also for the substance. Yet so does scrutiny on journalistic integrity, with debates raging about bias fact-checking and the role of the press in holding power accountable without becoming players in the game themselves. This chapter reveals how one statement, bold and unyielding, can cascade into economic tremors that affect jobs in sectors vulnerable to political whims, investments shifting toward more stable assets, and global perceptions of American reliability taking a hit as foreign markets react with caution. It's a domino effect where the personal becomes the professional, the verbal becomes the financial, reminding us that words from influential voices carry weight measured in dollars and livelihoods. On the international stage, the bombshell reverberates with echoes that cross oceans and borders, influencing diplomacy in subtle yet significant ways that reshape alliances and rivalries alike. World leaders comment subtly in press conferences or through diplomatic channels hinting at concerns over U.S. reliability under a leader prone to public meltdowns with phrases like, "Stability is key to partnership," serving as veiled critiques leaked diplomatic cables. Those confidential missives that occasionally surface show allies preparing contingency plans for more volatility in trade negotiations or security pacts. Navarro's words highlight Trump's isolationist tendencies that have long worried global partners, sparking debates in international forums on the future of alliances like NATO or trade blocs, where America's role is pivotal. He's not just losing it personally. A foreign minister notes in an off-the-record briefing that inevitably leaks. He's risking global stability with distractions that pull focus from shared threats like climate change or economic inequality. Trade talks stall as negotiators await clarity on U.S. positions that might shift, with the president's mood aid packages to developing nations are reconsidered amid fears of inconsistency. This isn't isolated to bilateral relations. It's interconnected with multilateral efforts, showing how domestic drama spills over borders into arenas like the United Nations or G7 summits. Environmental groups tie the incident to policy failures, arguing that Trump's distractions derail urgent climate efforts where international cooperation is essential. Activists point to missed opportunities in global accords as evidence of the broader harm. The bombshell becomes a lens for examining these larger failures, prompting editorials in foreign press that question America's leadership mantle. It's a moment where the world watches and waits, recalibrating strategies based on the perceived instability at the top. Culturally, it's a turning point that infuses art, entertainment, and education with new energy. Artists, musicians, and writers draw inspiration from the confrontation, creating memes that go viral with clever twists on Navarro's quotes. Songs composed in her honor that climb streaming charts, with lyrics about speaking truth to power. And books rush to publication that chronicle the event as a case study in resistance. Late-night shows parody Trump's meltdown with skits that blend humor and commentary, turning what could be tragedy into comedy gold that makes the message more accessible. Navarro emerges as an icon in popular culture, her image emblazoned on T-shirts sold at rallies, murals painted in urban neighborhoods, depicting her as a warrior of words. But there's pushback from Trump's base, counter-protesting, with claims of media bias and conspiracies that frame her as a puppet of opposing forces. This polarization deepens existing divides, but also fosters unexpected dialogue across lines, with some finding common ground in the need for civility. Schools incorporate the event into civics lessons, teachers using it to teach about rhetoric resilience and the importance of critical thinking in media consumption. The societal fabric stretches under the strain, revealing strengths in community bonds and fractures in trust that need mending. This chapter underscores the bombshell's role in reshaping norms, from boardrooms, where executives discuss corporate social responsibility, in light of political ties, to classrooms, where future leaders learn from the example. It's a cultural evolution spurred by one voice that echoes through generations. Legally, things heat up in courtrooms and oversight bodies' lawsuits fly as Trump's team sues for defamation in an attempt to silence the narrative. But Navarro stands firm, backed by free speech advocates and legal funds raised through crowdfunding that demonstrate public support. Courts become battlegrounds for defining the limits of political discourse, with precedents set on what constitutes protected speech versus libel. In the age of instant media, ethics committees in government probe deeper into the patterns of misconduct. Navarro alluded to uncovering emails, records, and testimonies that paint a fuller picture. This isn't about one rant or isolated incident. A lawyer argues in opening statements that captivate legal watchers. It's systemic abuse of power that demands accountability. Public opinion shifts as polls conducted in the wake showed declining approval ratings for Trump, with independents swinging toward calls for reform. The bombshell forces transparency initiatives, with records unsealed under pressure from freedom of information requests and journalistic persistence. It's a domino effect where legal actions topple long-held assumptions about impunity. For the powerful society demands more from its institutions, and they respond slowly, but with increasing momentum, driven by the public's gaze. Environmentally and health-wise, indirect effects emerge that highlight the human cost of political distractions. Trump's focus on personal vendettas means delayed responses to crises, from natural disasters exacerbated by climate change to public health emergencies that require swift action. Navarro's call-out inspires advocates to link his losing it to these policy neglects, while he's tweeting tantrums and nursing grudges. One expert says in a widely shared op-ed, real issues fester untreated like wildfires raging unchecked, or viruses spreading without containment. Communities mobilize for change, pushing for reforms in environmental regulations and healthcare access through lobbying and voter drives. This chapter explores these hidden costs in depth, showing how personal meltdowns translate to public harm on scales both local and national. The bombshell isn't just verbal sparring. It's a wake-up call for systemic overhaul that addresses the root causes of such dysfunction. As we close this section with a comprehensive view, the political and social waves from Navarro's stand continue to crash against the shores of convention. Trump's loss of control exposes vulnerabilities in the system, but it also galvanizes opposition into a force for progress. If this analysis resonates with you, like and share, because change starts with awareness and builds through collective effort. Next, we dive into the countermeasures and lasting legacy that define the true endurance of this moment. To further elaborate on the societal ripple effects, consider how this event has sparked a renaissance in civic engagement among younger demographics, millennials and Gen Z, taking to platforms like TikTok and Instagram to create short-form content that breaks down the bombshell's implications in digestible bites. Educators report increased interest in political science classes, with students citing the incident as a motivator for involvement. Meanwhile, economic analysts predict long-term shifts in consumer behavior toward ethical brands that align with values of integrity over controversy. International NGOs leverage the story to advocate for global standards and leadership accountability. Drawing parallels to similar figures worldwide, the cultural imprint is indelible, with references popping up in literature and film scripts that explore themes of power and resistance. Legally, the precedent set could influence future cases involving high-profile figures, shaping how free speech is balanced against reputational harm environmentally. It accelerates pushes for green policies by highlighting leadership failures in crisis response. Health experts use it to underscore the need for mental health resources in public service to prevent such breakdowns overall. This bombshell's impact is a tapestry woven from threads of politics, society, economy, and culture, each strand strengthening the call for a better path forward. With the bombshell's immediate and societal impacts laid bare in all their complexity, exposing the fractures and forces at play across the nation's political and social spheres, let's turn now to Trump's counteroffensive strategies, those calculated maneuvers designed to reclaim the narrative and mitigate the damage from Navarro's unflinching critique. He's not one to back down or retreat into silence when challenged. Instead, he ramps up the machinery of deflection with a ferocity that matches his initial meltdown. Spin doctors and communications teams huddle in war rooms, crafting narratives that paint Navarro as unstable, unreliable, or motivated by personal grudges, rather than principled. Stands flooding airwaves, social media feeds, and op-ed pages, with counterclaims that seek to discredit her at every turn. She's the one losing it, not me. His surrogates parrot in coordinated talking points delivered on cable news panels and podcasts. But this approach backfires in subtle ways as fact-checkers from independent outlets dismantle the lies piece by piece, turning what was meant as a sturdy defense into a display of desperation that only amplifies the original accusations. Trump's playbook: deny everything, outright distract with unrelated controversies or whataboutism, and demonize the opponent with ad hominem attacks, gets a full workout here, refined over years of political battles, but showing signs of wear as public fatigue sets in. This chapter dissects these tactics in depth, revealing their evolution from blunt instruments to more sophisticated operations involving data analytics to target sympathetic audiences. Yet the flaws become evident when even loyalists waver, questioning the wisdom of escalating a fight that draws more attention to the wounds. It's a high-stakes game where overreach can turn sympathizers into skeptics. Media manipulation plays a pivotal role in this counterattack, with friendly outlets that align ideologically with his worldview, amplifying his version of events through selective editing of clips that skew context and omit key details, presenting Navarro's words as out-of-context rants while portraying Trump's responses as measured and presidential. Yet independent journalism pushes back with tenacity, producing in-depth exposes that trace the roots of his reaction back to patterns of behavior. Documented over decades, Navarro, undeterred by the onslaught, counters with her own op-eds published in major newspapers and appearances on diverse platforms, expanding her initial bombshell into a comprehensive manifesto that outlines alternatives to the chaos she decries. Public relations battles ensue on multiple fronts, with ads funded by super PACs smearing her reputation, podcasts hosting dueling interviews, and viral campaigns engineered to trend hashtags that undermine her credibility. Trump's loss of cool becomes prime fodder for satire in this arena, weakening his armor as comedians and content creators lampoon his outbursts in ways that stick in the public consciousness. We explore here how these strategies aim to reclaim narrative control through sheer volume and repetition, but often end up amplifying the original damage by keeping the story alive longer than it might have. Otherwise, it's a chess game played on a digital board, where one wrong move exposes the king to checkmate, and in this case, the counter-moves reveal as much about the player's vulnerabilities as they do about strength. Institutionally, he leverages the levers of power to retaliate in ways that go beyond words, appointing or promoting yes-men within government agencies who echo his rage and implement policies that subtly target critics' interests. Funding cuts to programs supported by Navarro's allies' regulatory hurdles thrown in the path of organizations she champions, or investigations launched under pretexts that smell of vendetta? But resistance builds organically with coalitions forming across party lines to protect fundamental freedoms like speech and assembly. Whistleblowers from within the administration leak memos that expose these tactics, fueling further scrutiny from oversight committees and the press. This reveals the design of such approaches and eroded trust in institutions that were meant to serve the public good, now perceived as tools for personal scores. Trump's pushback isn't just reactive to the moment. It's proactive erosion of democratic norms, setting dangerous precedents for future leaders who might see retaliation as a viable strategy rather than a last resort. Analysts and historians warn of authoritarian drifts in real-time commentaries, urging vigilance from citizens and elected officials alike to safeguard checks and balances. The bombshell forces a defense that exposes deeper agendas hidden beneath the surface, prompting calls for reforms like stronger ethics laws or independent commissions to monitor executive overreach. It's a battle for the soul of governance, where short-term wins can lead to long-term losses in legitimacy. Personally, Trump's inner world unravels further under the strain. Biographers and close observers note patterns of increasing isolation, with aides tiptoeing around his moods to avoid becoming the next target of ire. Navarro's words haunt him like a persistent echo, fueling paranoia that manifests in late-night rants or impulsive decisions that ripple outward. Yet this catalyzes self-reflection. In unlikely places, former allies break ranks to speak out publicly, sharing regrets about enabling behaviors they now see as destructive. The human cost emerges: starkly strained relationships with family and confidants, potential health tolls from chronic stress that experts link to such high-pressure environments. This chapter humanizes the fallout beyond the headlines, showing how public figures' battles scar privately in ways that affect judgment and well-being. Trump's losing it isn't an isolated episode. It's a symptom of unchecked ambition clashing with reality, offering lessons for all on the perils of power without humility. Psychologists weigh in on panels discussing resilience and emotional intelligence in leadership, drawing parallels to historical figures who fell from grace due to similar flaws. It's a poignant reminder that behind the bluster are individuals shaped by experiences, and the bombshell serves as a mirror, forcing confrontation with those inner demons. Long-term legacy-wise, the bombshell cements Navarro as a trailblazer in the annals of political commentary. History books and documentaries will cite this as a pivotal moment in the timeline of resistance against divisive leadership. Trump's era, marked by volatility and polarization, gets re-evaluated through this lens, with scholars analyzing how such confrontations highlight systemic issues like media echo chambers or the cult of personality in politics. Future campaigns adapt their strategies, emphasizing composure and substantive debate over inflammatory rhetoric to avoid similar pitfalls. Cultural artifacts immortalize the exchange films, dramatizing the event, with award-winning scripts, books exploring its psychological depths, even video games incorporating themes of verbal combat against authoritarian figures. We delve into projections here, how this shapes upcoming elections by energizing voter bases disillusioned with status quo, how it influences norms around public discourse to favor authenticity over aggression, and how it fosters a more resilient democracy where challenges to power are normalized rather than vilified. The descent isn't one of destruction or defeat. It's evolution pushing society toward mechanisms that prevent the concentration of unchecked influence. Trump's countermeasures may stem the tide temporarily, buying time to regroup, but the undercurrent of change persists, flowing stronger beneath the surface. Globally, the echoes of this saga influence international relations in nuanced ways that reshape geopolitical dynamics. Allies recalibrate their expectations, drafting policies that account for potential U.S. instability by diversifying partnerships or hedging bets on trade deals. Foes exploit the divisions exposed using propaganda to portray American leadership as fractured, and unreliable diplomatic strategies evolve accordingly, with greater emphasis on multilateral forums, where no single nation dominates. This chapter connects the dots from a personal clash in a TV studio to worldwide implications that affect everything from security pacts to economic forums, highlighting the interconnectedness of domestic politics with global affairs. Trump's pushback, while fierce and multifaceted, underscores vulnerabilities in what was once seen as unassailable American hegemony, prompting reflections on soft power and the role of perception in international standing. In conclusion, as Trump fights back with every tool at his disposal, the bombshell's essence endures as a testament to the enduring power of speaking truth. Amid adversity, his strategies may delay the inevitable reckoning, but they cannot deny the momentum toward change that such moments generate. If inspired by this exploration of counterplay and legacy, subscribe and comment below to join the ongoing conversation. This saga reminds us all one voice raised in conviction can echo eternally through the halls of history, shaping not just the present, but the future we collectively build. To expand further on the countermeasures' intricacies, Trump's team employs advanced digital tactics like bot networks to amplify supportive messages and drown out dissent, but cybersecurity experts expose these efforts, leading to backlash that erodes credibility. Further, Navarro's response involves building alliances with like-minded figures, creating a network of voices that multiply her impact. The legacy extends to education with curricula, updated to include case studies on media, literacy, and ethical leadership globally. It inspires similar stands in other nations, facing populist leaders fostering a transnational movement for accountability. Personally, Trump's isolation might lead to pivotal decisions that alter policy trajectories, while Navarro's elevation opens doors for underrepresented voices. In media, the overall descent is one of empowerment, where the bombshell becomes a blueprint for resistance that outlives the immediate conflict, ensuring its place in the narrative of progress.